everybody. Welcome to Cabinet meeting for the 12th of July 2017. And as long as this microphone continues to actually record my voice, just remind everybody that this evening's meetings will be recorded and made available online at a later stage, and also parts or all of the meeting will be recorded and played online accordingly. So we're going to move to item 1, which is apologies for absence. I've had apologies for absence from Councillor Coxall and Councillor McPherson. Any other apologies? Kenneth? We'll move then on to item 2, which is the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 21st of June 2017. Have we all read those? Yes, we have. We're happy with that? Agree those? Yeah. Moving on to item 3, which is urgent items of business. I've received nothing as an urgent item of business. Moving on to declarations of interest. Has any member got any declarations of interest at all? No. Moving on to statements of the leader. This microphone actually gets all the way through them. Obviously with the... Sorry, Ken, are these? I'll use the separate one. Obviously, at the last Cabinet meeting and the last Council meeting, I gave an update to all members and residents over the issues with the tower blocks. Obviously, I will repeat. Again, the cladding that we have used in our tower blocks is not the same as used at the Grenfell Tower. And they are O-rated for fire, which means they are pretty much inflammable. Sorry, non-inflammable, sorry. Despite the fact that the government have not wanted us to have submit samples for testing, we will be going forward with independent testing of our own, just to make sure that our residents are safe. However, further to that, I'll give another update. We did hold residents' meetings at all of the tower blocks or here in the office, which was sparsely attended, but those that did attend found it very useful, which was very good feedback from them. They are quite happy with what the council did from literally day one and what we've done since, and of course we won't just stop there. We will continue to make sure that our residents are safe and know what has happened, so what is happening. Following up on the meetings that we did last week, we've had some more or less drops for the frequently asked questions, and we'll be issuing fire safety bulletins to all our tenants in the coming months. Further initiatives will be covered in these briefings, which will include smoke alarm heat detector checks for all tenants, pack testing exercise to be carried out initially by a contractor, and then skills mainstreamed into our own estates team to make sure small appliances such as fridge, freezers and things like that are tested and safe, and the residents can then make a decision as to what they do if they are not. I'm getting to the point where I'm just going to start dealing without this because this is not working at all. Can everyone hear me? Because the microphone's just not working. A small number of our leaseholders, these are people that have bought properties within high rises, have been contacted and given 14 days to ensure that their internal and external doors comply with building regulations for fire safety. We will then follow that up to make sure that work has been done. We have contractors, as mentioned, will be visiting all the blocks shortly to take test samples of the cladding material. And as I say, this has not been required by government, but we are doing it and making sure that our cladding is safe. The National Grid will be removing the central gas appliances which have remained in some blocks beyond the end of the supply to individual units. Now this means that some of the blocks have the mains gas pipe effectively still in the property. These will be removed over the coming months by the National Grid, so there will not be any kind of risk. The fire safety assessments, we've appointed a new contractor in the form of Essex Fire Safety Limited. This professional brand of a retired firefighter and a member of the Institute of Fire Engineers is fully accredited to assess our fire safety regimes and make appropriate recommendations for us to implement. Parking arrangements on the tower block estates. We're working in partnership with our parking control officers to step up enforcement where necessary. All areas need emergency vehicle access, and that's being rehatched by contractors, so it's very clear open signage. And I will again ask residents, do not park in these hatched areas. They're not just there for the fire brigade, they're there for the ambulances should they need to come and give assistance to our residents. Every second delay is a second that someone is put at risk, so please do not park in them. They're not free parking spots. The Services Fire Safety Task Force is meeting regularly and will be moving beyond the blocks in the coming weeks to refresh all arrangements and provide information to other council tenants in sheltered and low-rise blocks. We will be considering further initiatives to encourage the reporting of fire risks in the private sector rented sector, and to ensure that we make every possible safety risk assessment done. And it's continued to be done not just within our blocks, but make sure they're done by our private block owners. Before I move on to the Clean It, Cut It, Fill It update, I'd like to welcome Councillor Aaron Watkins onto Cabinet. He is taking up the role that formerly undertaken by Councillor Tolson. Obviously thank Councillor Tolson for last year's worth of service as a Cabinet Member for Environment, and know that Aaron, you've got quite a way to sort of live up to and move forward with, so welcome on board. I'll make it easy for you on the first one. I'll do the Clean It and Cut It updates, but we'll need to start providing them in the future. On the Clean It, enforcement officers have issued 39 fixed penalty notices just last week, bringing the total to 1,672 since December. 14 more prosecutions were brought against people for not paying these fixed penalty notices, resulting in them in receiving a much larger fine and a criminal record. I would again just point out, it's not worth a criminal record. Put it in your pocket, put it in the bin, but drop it on the floor, then you are risking a heavy fine and a criminal record. Since April, we've collected 22,425 bags of litter from litter picking across the borough. We've emptied the equivalent of 11,895 litter bins. Our team have collected approximately 660 fly tips, and that excludes those that are picked up by the grab lorries for individual things like fridges that are dumped on the side of the road. When it comes to Cut It, since April we've cut over 1,000 hectares of grass. I will make sure, because obviously I'm sure everybody in this room knows exactly how big 1,000 hectares are. I will make sure in the future this will be distilled down to something that we can all equate to. From the 79 parks and green spaces, we've got an additional 4,630 bags of rubbish that have been removed, and another 1.6 tonnes of fly tipping. I cannot believe that people are using our parks and green spaces just to tip their rubbish. It really is a case, again, please put it in your pocket and take it home. If there isn't a bin that you can see close by, or if that bin is full. Moving on to Fill It, 2,068 potholes have been filled since April. Major resurfacing works are underway as part of the National Productivity Investment Fund from Government, and that includes 6,000 square metres of road in Argent Street, Hog Lane and Buckles Lane, for instance, are all being completed and resurfaced. Roads in Tilbury, Ockenden Grays, Dorset, Chadwell are being upgraded in the coming weeks. The junction of Calcutta Road and St Chad's Road in Tilbury has been upgraded with resurfacing and LED signals installed. Moving on to some good news again, this time in housing. We are working with Hyper Optic to provide broadband to thousands of our social housing tenants. Thurrock residents will be able to choose from a number of affordable broadband and landline packages, including Hyper Optic's 4 gigabit service, or 100 megabit service, or 20 megabit service, all of which can be offered on a contract-free basis without the need for any credit checks. Hyper Optic will offer Thurrock Council residents the UK's cheapest broadband-only service. Hyper Optic will initially be making its service available to 1,700 tenants across the 12 developments in Thurrock, with the first one at Marine Court in Purfleet to go live, followed by those in Tilbury and then across the borough. I'll move on to the gas works that have been undertaken on London Road. There have been 22 gas leaks in London Road that needed urgent attention in recent years, and we all know how often the road's been dug up there. On Monday the 24th July to the 1st of September, the first phase of works is being delivered by Trio Cadence. Two-way traffic lights will be in place, including a dedicated traffic management team on site, with diversion routes being implemented during most serious congestion. Waste collection in that area will be from 5 AM. Therefore, I really would encourage everyone that lives in that area to put their bin out the night before rather than risk it being missed in the morning. And would apologise in advance to any inconveniences it's going to cause, but I would rather get this all over and done with once, rather than, as we've seen over the years, months of repair works being done ad hoc every time there's a problem. So hopefully we'll see an end of London Road appearing to be the national school project of road digging. So we'll now move on to briefings on policy budget statements. Have we got any member wish to give anything? Petitions submitted by members of the public. Confirm there are no petitions submitted by members of the public. Before we move on to item 8, which is questions from non-executive members, because there are members, residents that are here that come to see decisions in action, I have a proposal to move item 13 to be with item 8. So one question you've had from Councillor Rice can be asked before that question, before the item's heard, and then residents can hear the item, and then if they wish to stay afterwards they can choose to, rather than having to sit there and listen to the wonderful work through the corporate performance, Thurrock Design Guide, etc. So if I could ask Councillor Rice if you'd like to come forward, and hopefully your mic will work.
Thank you very much, Leader, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask this question from our sheltered housing residents who have asked me to speak for them. The question I would like to ask, Leader, is in these times of austerity, where every single penny counts, can the Leader please tell us what additional services or commodities will be provided for sheltered housing tenants for the extra £10 a week that, if it is voted through tonight, will go ahead in 22 months?
Thank you, Councillor Rice. As the report makes clear, this proposal, which obviously still hasn't been agreed as yet, will ensure that over 36 services that are received by not only the sheltered accommodation tenants, but all those general tenants will be added as a service charge. Those service charges will be paid for by those that receive them, not by everybody in some archaic all-inclusive rent system that's been applied to up to now. The report includes a commitment to improve sheltered housing service based on feedback received through the consultation exercise, and there will be service level agreements in place for all of the services provided, not just those at the sheltered accommodation. Do you have supplementary?
Yes, please. That being the case, I'm pleased to hear that. So are you telling us tonight, Councillor Deadhill, that all of the 3 million plus will be invested and used for our sheltered housing tenants and not for other properties, because the paper clearly states, and you have said, that we can't have people paying for other services or others that don't live there getting a freebie. So can you assure us tonight that in 22 months' time, when we are collecting the full whacking, which is £3 million, all of that is going to be invested for our sheltered housing tenants?
The amount of money that's collected by service charges can only be used for service charges. The good thing about service charges is should, through contract negotiation or whatever, the cost of supplying that service go down, obviously then the cost can also go down. Should we supply more service charges, we'll have to increase it because of increased costs. Again, that service charge will be increased, but all of that money is only spent on service charges. It's not distributed elsewhere, it's just for the service charge that for the goods that they're actually paying for. So for instance, lift maintenance money for those that've got lifts in general needs will only be used for lift maintenance.
So it's not...
Sorry, Councillor, you only get one supplementary.
Oh, that's a shame. I'll write to you and ask some further questions, because the tenants have a lot more to ask.
That's absolutely no problem.
Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Rice. And moving on to obviously item 13, which is on page 171 for those that have got copies in the back. The paper out before you outlines bringing in line proposed service charges not only for shelter accommodation but for general needs. It makes clear that the services will pay for. So, for instance, as I mentioned just now, for lifts and for grass cutting and other services. With the sheltered housing, it's slightly more complicated. As I say, they do receive 36 other services that residents in general needs don't receive, things like water treatment, testing for Legionellas on a regular basis, fridge freezer monitoring, just plucking a few of these from here, advocacy in relation to some of their personal needs, things like ensuring that where they pay for TV licences they do, and where they don't they get a free TV licence. These are things that are not just these things that are solely used in the shelter accommodation. I am pleased the original proposed charges were looking at a £15 charge for shelter accommodation. Through this process and through the consultation, which I must thank John Knight and his team for going out to every shelter accommodation, that has now been reduced and will only increase to a maximum of £10 per week for all sheltered accommodation. From £5 per week starting from the 1st of October this year, with the next year rising just to £8. Because of the work that John has done, we managed to bring that price down. We identified charges in there that would be unfair to be on residents, so that was certainly one of the good things that have come out of the consultation. As mentioned, it's not just the sheltered accommodation, it's also for our general needs. And the report outlines the number of tenants that are likely to be directly affected. So, for instance, in shelter accommodation, 72%, I believe, are on full or partial housing benefits. So those on full will not have to pay any. Those on partial may not have to pay everything, or may have to pay a very small amount, and the remainder will pay as per any other tenant. There is currently a system where those that have recently come into shelter accommodation already pay, so that will level that out once and for all. You'll see that it will be a graduated increase, as mentioned. That is only fair, putting obviously an instant £10 increase onto a service charge as part of the rent would be not the best way. It helps people adjust into how they're going to pay for the future. So if any members have got any questions, as this is not the first time this paper's come to us, I'll put them out. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the report. I'm so pleased that you've managed to keep it so low, the charge in the end, and I think that's to be commended. Because what was worrying me, that you residents were already paying £8, yet we're going to have a two-tier system, you know, with some not paying it at all, just because they've been, by virtue of being on standing, yet the new ones were. And I do like the idea of having this two-tiered system, so I welcome that we're all going to be in line with what everything else is happening. Can you also tell me what improvements we expect to have and what are already going forward?
Well, obviously this is not just, as I keep on saying, it's not just shelter accommodations covered by this, it's also general needs. One of the things that we insisted on, I insisted on fairly early on, is that we have a service level agreement for everything, so tenants will know what to expect and where we fall short. They can hold us to account, and we can make sure that that is something that's improved as we go forward. I do like the term pay for what you get what you pay for. It does tap in exactly what Councillor Rice was asking. You know, the money they will be paying will go directly into those services, not into anything else. And those services can be held to account rather than just at the moment where, you know, if the lift breaks down, for instance, it's broken down, we'll fix it point. But you know, there will be a set service level agreement in there, not only with our tenants, but obviously with the contractors to make sure that they are doing their part under our contracts. We've also got the Shelter House Improvement Programme that's fired off this financial year. This has seen improvements to shelter housing complexes, not only the communal areas, but obviously like things like the gardens, but also to some of the properties themselves. And this is being supplied by our contractors that we're using housing, and will be rolled out over every single shelter housing accommodation that we have. So they will see the direct improvements. They're all different, so I'm not going to say, yeah, we're going to put this in one and something else in another. They're all different depending on their needs. I understand the ones in Chadwell that were done last month have been very well received, and I've seen an instant improvement in the immediate area.
Thank you, Lee. That's really welcome. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Lisa. How does this compare to rent rises and charges that we might have seen under the previous administration?
Well, up until the government introduced the 1% reduction for all social housing rents, the plan was to increase rents, I think it's about 1.5%, thereabouts. Yeah.
Above inflation.
Above inflation, year on year, to be able to fund moving the housing department forward. So by 2020, the average rent would have been up by £11.62, and that includes obviously those in sheltered. It will go up now only with the service charges by £10 by that point, and no difference to the rent. It will be covered by housing benefit for those that receive housing benefit. Obviously, it's only those residents that receive the service or would be eligible to receive the service that would actually pay for it. So we won't see as much of an increase in income as would have been done under the increase in rent plan. But it does mean that we will end up using this money to pay for those services, and the money we're not using to pay for those services will be then ploughed back into the housing service for home improvements and home building. Any other questions? No. As I say, you know, this is not. We're not the only local authority that are doing service charges. A lot of other service charges outside the area. I've got friends that live in Havering are much more expensive. They're much more wide-ranging. They pay for things like bulk waste collection as a flat rate, whether they receive it or not. We have been quite prudent with what we've put forward. We've only put forward for environment, for the security locks, and for the lifts, and obviously in shelter accommodation for the extra services they receive within the shelter accommodation. Already some of our tenants already pay a service charge for things like concierge, or for the communal heating, or for caretaking. So these are not new. This is just actually bringing them all in force, so everyone ends up, as I say, getting what they pay for and paying for what they get. So moving to the recommendations, and there are 4 of them on page 171. Are we all in agreement with all of those as outlined? Agreed. Thank you very much. Councillor Rice, I'm not sure if you're staying for everything with your residents.
I think I'm giving them a leave time, so thank you.
Okay, just to allow a few minutes for our residents to leave if they wish to leave, or you're certainly welcome to stay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And I look forward to your emails.
I'm sure you will.
You will. You definitely will. You may.
Okay, moving back to the agenda as written. Moving on to, moving back to item 10, which is appointments for outside bodies, statutory and other panels. Need to make a correction in regards to the Thurrock Community Safety Partnership. That would actually be Councillor McPherson who will sit on that, because it's more into her portfolio than it does into the environment one, which is, as mentioned, now covered by Councillor Watkins. So can that amendment be made, please, Kenneth? Now moving on to item 11, which is the end of year corporate performance and progress report 2016-17 and the corporate performance framework 17-18. Over to you, Councillor Hooley.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll try and stay awake. This report looks back on how council did last year and helps us work out how we're going to do things in the future this year. It highlights some of the great work that's been done, like 96% of our schools graded as good or better by Ofsted. So well done, Councillor Helen and team. But I know you won't rest until there's at least 110% outstanding.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of hard work being done to secure funding for projects like homelessness and domestic abuse. And we'll continue with our proactive approach, which we've simplified the report system, we've got clear targets for improving services. We had a proper survey done where we asked residents what was important to them and how, more importantly, we actually listened to the answers and delivered things like clean it, cut it and fill it. And now, as you've said already, Leader, we're asking people to actually bin the litter, don't chuck it on the floor. We revise the things that we measure and judge the service on so that they reflect what's important to the residents of Thurrock. And we now have 60% of services on target, which is much better than the previous year. And we mustn't forget that still leaves us at 40%. So we're not going to be resting. We'll be reviewing and revising targets to make sure that they're realistic and meaningful to residents. But it's not just about achieving the target, it's about continually improving. I'd like to see the downward facing arrows actually turn around facing upwards. So we can't allow our services to fall further away from their target, and that's why I'd like to see better improvement this year going forward on narrative, giving focus to not only what caused the problems, but how it will be fixed and improved, and measures to follow up to make sure those actions took place, and if they haven't worked, what we're going to do instead. We'll be focusing on implementing the customer service strategy to improve residents' experience with dealing with council right across services. And there's also a working group focusing on the new vision for Thurrock. And we're also, because of the success of the residents' survey, we're going to be repeating that again this year. And within that, we'll also be asking residents for their views and opinions on what their vision is for Thurrock.
Thank you, Councillor Hooley. Has anyone got any specific questions in relation to this report? That's all? Councillor Seller?
It's only a comment because of the 3,000 with a gift, give a gift for the children at Christmas and how splendidly that worked. And I would just like to say that I will be running that again this year. But this time I'll make sure I get all the backing paper as well. And hopefully get some voluntary people in to help us wrap it all so we don't have people like Mr. Cox with sellotape. stuck here, there and everywhere.
You'll have scissors in the shower.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
refused to wear the hat last night.
Exactly, you put the Santa hat on. But we will be rolling this out. I have spoken to Lakeside and they have said, they would help. And, I think that was a real achievement and shows how community spirited everyone is, and residents actually do. When we put up a form, my God, they get behind it. I thought that was wonderful, so thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Councillor Hooley, anything to last respond?
Yeah, I want to really highlight that when we deliver the report in September to full council, we've got more people listening and more residents listening, hopefully, because it was an absolute fantastic, outstanding achievement. I agree totally.
Councillor Hope, sorry.
I'm sure we have thousands of people listening as we speak. I'm quite sure of it. For me, this report is quite clear. It lands one key message, and that is that Thurrock Council is a better council now than what we arrived in Cabinet a year ago. Our first act in the performance department, my good colleague, was to stop hiding behind amber-rated measures and say frankly whether we did or did not. And after abolishing that red, amber, green standard and moving to an achieved and a failed metric, the council we inherited was performing at 49% on and 51% off track. A little bit more bad than good. So I am pleased that we dedicated the portfolio holder to performance, and we've got a cabinet with fingers on the pulse and the conviction to act. And that this council now performs at 60 to 40%. And one big group of people we must not neglect are the officers and teams in this council at this table and working for you and with you. You have excelled, you have done immeasurably brilliant. Well done and thank you. And what a year. You go back to the spirit that come out at the give a gift. Well, someone always corrects me when I call it that, because I'm sure it's called something else. But what a fantastic spirit that was garnered across this borough. And there's been other things. A manifesto pledge delivered, clean it, cut it, fit it, delivered with another £1 million going into it this year. A budget delivered with £500,000 surplus. Economic confidence at height. 85% tenant satisfaction in homes. 850 out of 1,000 tenants are satisfied or very satisfied with the properties that we have here for them in Thurrock. 10 million from government, straight from government into Grace. How brilliant is that? You've already mentioned 96% good or better in education. 44 out of 44 childcare facilities rated good by the Ofsted standard. Record unemployment. This borough is genuinely carving a place on the map that there are others that would not dare believe. The bar was raised, we delivered. But more importantly, echoing your point, Councillor Hewlett, is that it's now time to set the bar even higher. 2016-17 was a good year. But as you know, it was always better to good to great. I look forward to that journey. The task at hand now is to get to good, to get to great. So we've made great steps, and thank you, Councillor Hewlett, for your ownership around the performance brief.
Thank you, Councillor Hev. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Leader. Just two things I want to highlight. That this year we've had the highest amount of children getting their first place options at school than we have ever had before, which is not just an achievement in itself, but if you consider the sheer scale of the generation of the borough, actually being able to match children to their choice of education establishment on that scale is absolutely phenomenal. As we go forward, myself and the Director for Education meeting regularly with the Director for Generation Planning to make sure that the further school developments are in sympathy with the local plan, try and maintain that standard, see if we can push the bar even further. And also the one piece of news that really kind of slipped under the radar, Thurrock a few months ago was recognised as having the best youth offending service in the entire nation for reducing reoffending. That is a teeny tiny team that operate, I think, the lesson out of the old housing office in Corringham, if I'm right.
Yes, it is.
And best in the nation. I think that's a real achievement.
Yeah.
And from that tiny housing office in Corringham, they don't often get to blow the trumpet, but I think it's well deserved to do so.
Excellent, thank you, Councillor Helm. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you. Firstly, in relation to the performance report and what I've seen over the previous year, in relation as well to how the report is presented, I think this is fantastic to see. It's massive step in the right direction so that we can see clear indicators. It's so good I actually even took this to the fire authority and made them implement it there because they were doing one better than red, amber, green. They were using 6 colours to try and show their performance. So that was very interesting when I first attended my committee meetings and saw that. So and see what changed. So it's good to know as well that the Thurrock model is also being applied across the borough as well to outside agencies. And obviously I'd just like to thank you as well for the opportunity which you've provided me in relation to this cabinet decision. I really am looking forward to working with the team and also working with yourselves as well going forward, and also working with obviously these KPIs, improving as much as we can do, and I look forward to bringing this up in the future as a cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Any other members before I say my place? No. One of the things I said right at the beginning of the administration is we would not hide anything away. As it's already been mentioned, we got rid of the amber. You either pass or you fail. You hit or you miss. It doesn't always work in our favour, and I'll give you a nice example on page 32, about halfway down. Number of places available for 2-year-olds to access early years education in the borough. Downward arrow, and it's failed. But when you look at the reasons, this target is an indicator that is set nationally and does not reflect the actual need within Thurrock, as there was a decrease in the number of eligible children in Thurrock. Therefore, although the indicator will be flagged as failed, there are more than enough places provided to families, etc., etc. So sometimes these targets are actually outside of our control. This is set somewhere else. We can't actually, suddenly make a lot of 2-year-olds appear for nursery places, so we'll never truly achieve that 100% all the way through. But I will not hide where we're not performing well. And one of the things that we that also hasn't met our own high expectations within the cleaning regime is the indicator on clean streets. And one of the things we have suggested and we're going forward with is, rather than marking our own homework, which is what's been happening over the past I don't know how many years, we will be getting in Keep Britain Tidy, and they will be doing our street audits. And I would rather know exactly what we're missing the target by from an outside organisation, rather than just relying on our own team. I would like to also thank our own team that have been supplying this up until now. This is not a reflection on what they've done, and if they've done it poorly or well. I just feel that putting it outside and making it very clear that it's not us checking our own homework is the right thing to do. Excuse me. So with that in mind, we have the 2 recommendations on page 13. Can I have an agreement on those? We agree. Agree. Thank you. We'll now move on to page 39, which is the Thurrock Design Guide, Residential Alteration Extension Supplementary Planning Document, the SPD. That would normally be delivered by Councillor Cockshaw. Unfortunately, Councillor Cockshaw will be here on time from his day work, so I will be introducing the report. We've already seen similar that's come through before through Cabinet. This, again, is a nice, easy to read, albeit a little bit long as a report, a nice, easy to read guide for what we expect to happen in Thurrock when it comes to people extending and altering their properties. We've got one of the most ambitious regeneration programmes across the country. We want to move our borough from where it is. I live in a house that was built, I think it was 1898. We've got properties coming up with a much better design, much newer style properties. So we need to make sure that what we're adding to these older buildings is in keeping, along with safe, along with not upsetting the neighbours, and making sure the whole borough appears much, much nicer. I'm not one for wishing to dictate on everybody our exact specifications for everything, so that it's obviously gives a very good guideline and a nice gloss. It doesn't sort of say it's got to be X feet by Y feet and so on. And it does, as I say, one of the most important things, as we all know as elected members, when somebody's putting up an extension, especially a first floor extension as well, there was invariably comments from the neighbours about loss of light, shadowing, and so on. So it's really good that anyone that's thinking of putting any alterations in, look at this, take on board what it says, and submit your plans accordingly. As I say, it is quite a lengthy report for something which really is feeding into a much bigger document as we go through the whole improvement programme in Thurrock. So it does have to come here. So have I got any questions or comments on it, please, Councillor Little?
Yes, I welcome this report, and I actually read it from start to finish twice. What I found interesting about this is very often we as councillors, whenever any person, within our wards want to do an extension, how much we're allowed to do this, how much we're allowed to do that, how often do we see plans go in that are turned down? This gives clear, simple advice. People will be able to access this, they won't have to read the whole report, but they'll look, for instance, dormers. And it sets out really clearly what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. It's also not giving that big nanny state, because it's also going to give diversity within the borough. We don't want everyone's house looking the same, but we do want our street scenes to look nice and presentable. And I think with this clear guidelines, it will also cut down on, where we have to have people who build things and suddenly have to go for retro planning, etc. And I think this is a really important document, and I really welcome it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Little. And you're quite right. We can't have houses looking exactly the same. I couldn't think of anything worse than 60,000 houses all looking exactly the same, with exactly the same style roof extensions, with exactly the same porches, etc. If you obviously go around some of the newer estates, North Stifford, for instance, a wide variety of different types of properties. From property design and structure, it looks absolutely fantastic. It doesn't give you that just dropped out of the box and just completely drops it every single time. It's exactly what we need. But we don't just build houses, residents then build homes and they extend those homes, and we need to make sure that they've got good guidelines in which to work, but they've got the freedom to make theirs look completely different, which is absolutely fantastic.
Anybody? It's so clearly live written as well, which I
yes,
really welcome.
it is.
Which before was a bit of a nightmare, and I know a bit about building, and I used to put my hands up, but this is clear guidance.
And that's it, it's written in an understandable language. I only read it once because I only had to read it once, which is really quite good, rather than having to go back repeatedly and try and work out what was being said. So congratulations there to the officers that put this together, Steve. And obviously, this is the kind of style as we move forward that is easy to understand and digest, not just by us, but by our residents. Anybody else got anything to say before I sum up and move to the recommendations? No. I know Councillor Cox won't mind me saying this, but had Councillor Cox been here, I'd still be talking about this. He's really proud of this report and the way that this is forming the basis to move forward in the way that the plans for the whole borough are changing. I will move just to the recommendations as outlined on page 39, 1.1 and 1.2. Are they both agreed? Agreed? Excellent. We've already heard the proposed housing revenue account service charges, so we're moving on to item 14 at page 181, and that's the procurement of an integrated sexual health service for 2018 to 2023. That's over to Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Leader. Cabinet approved a one-year extension to the current health contract in March, so we can put everything in place we need for the re-tender. It's quite simple. We want a one-stop shop for this type of service, and people in a position to provide that. And this report gives us permission to go out to tender and for the award contract to be done between the Director of Public Health in consultation with myself. I think it's just worth saying that the teenage pregnancy rate in Thurrock is actually lower than it ever has been since records began. It was at 43% in 2005 and is only at 24% today. Obviously, that's a real combination of things. An integrated sexual health service is a very important service. But what's more important is as we raise the ambitions and aspirations of the borough, make sure people raise their expectations of the types of jobs they can access the greater life chances that you give people, the more positive trend you can put their lives on. So a drop in this figure, an integrated sexual health service is obviously important, but making sure that there are as many options for young people as possible is equally vital. So this is an important first step, but it comes as a part of the cocktail of everything we're doing in terms of employment and schools, etc. But this will allow us to proceed with, hopefully, what will be a far better, more joined up service.
Excellent, thank you, Councillor Howden. Has anyone got any questions on this or anything they'd like to make? No, none. Councillor Howden, do you want to sum up before I move to the recommendations? Anything else to add? In that case, we move to the recommendations as outlined on page 181 at 1.1 and 1.2. Are they both agreed? Agreed. We'll move on to item 15, which is the Integrated Medical Centre Delivery Plan, and that's on page 193. This would be a joint report between Councillor Coxon and Councillor Howden, but Councillor Howden will be taking the whole of this.
Thank you, Leader. Well, this is really terrific news that we've said so many times that we need to move from concept to delivery. We've had several years where we've been talking about what was originally an estate plan for primary care, that became health integrated living hubs. But this is the first concrete step we've taken to actually get it done. What tonight will do is release the money for the design team to be procured. The team is going to obviously be working on what is going to be the core offer, starting with Tilbury and Chapel site. So primary care, outpatients, some diagnostics, perhaps some community space as that core offer, and very importantly looking at future proofing. So not just looking at demography and population today, but looking at complex models to make sure that we are building facilities that are going to be the sort of facilities that do take us many, many years into the future. So that's the core offer. And it's great we're finally doing this. And when we move to implementation stage, the investment we're going to be making for the people in Tilbury and Chapel will be somewhere between 10 and 20 million. So it's incredibly significant for people in these areas. Obviously, this is one. The other two facilities will be delivered by Nelft and Eput, with a fourth one that will obviously be in Purfleet, and we're considering the best way forward. And as Councillor Cochran has already said at full council, regardless of the generation there, we will use any power that we are required to use to ensure we do deliver the medical centre in Purfleet. And obviously this is a key part of what we heard at open scrutiny the other night. As Basildon Hospital by the CCG moved to consultation regarding ORSIT, ensuring that we are building these modern facilities means that we can meet the high-level principles all our health partners have agreed that subject to consultation, no change will happen at ORSIT until new facilities are built to accommodate the services, because all the services, clinical services, will remain in Thurrock. So that's an important strand to ensure that subject to consultation these facilities are available. But regardless of that, this is the first step we are making to make a very significant investment for the people of Tilbury and Channel. I'm absolutely delighted that we've finally got it here. And it takes considerable effort to actually corral so many. When you're working with the NHS, it's considerably more complex than local government. So I will thank Roger Harris and Steve Cox. It is not easy to pull this sort of thing together. So I will have my thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Howden. And obviously, whilst we've already done declarations of interest, and whilst not declarations of interest as such, I do need to make it clear that I am the chair of the patient participation group in one of the other, or one of the surgeries in Tilbury. But this report would not affect either that surgery or indeed myself, either directly or financially. Do we have any questions for Councillor Howden? Councillor Soolittle?
Thank you, Leader. I really welcome this report, and I'm so pleased that Councillor Howden has pushed this through, because for so long we heard that this was going to happen, but it needed Councillor Howden's touch to actually get it through to fruition, and I'm so pleased that it's now come up. The other thing is, and I think it's well worth stating, is that it's really going to stop the inequality, as I see it, of healthcare within Tilbury and Chadwell. And I think that is really good. And I think residents ought to be aware of that. So thank you, James, and thank you for the report.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, just like to thank Councillor Horden and also the team as well for the hard work with everything they've done in relation to this report, and obviously steps taken already, quite rightly. As has already been mentioned, a lot has been said in the past about where we're going to go with it. Not a lot has really happened, but actually we are now starting to see it's happening, and it's really great to see for all the residents of Thurrock, particularly tonight as well, those in Tilbury. Just going on to a key point to which the Councillor Horden made in relation to obviously these being new medical facilities ready for the 21st century, but also making sure they're future-proofed as well. That's a really key point to make in relation to these 4 new centres being built, because future-proofing is vital. Because whatever happens far in the future, these centres need to be ready to face it. And it's really great to see that's a key part of this.
Sorry, Councillor, what's the response to that? Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Just taking Councillor and Councillor Watkins' comments at the same time, we know one of the problems we've got in the borough, but it's very outdated, old model of a single-handed GP practice, where perhaps it's an old house, the GP operates out of the living room, it's being a single-handed practice, essentially means that there's very little that can be done to address poor levels of quality. Because it's a single provider, and if they choose to shut up shop, it gives us a very, very severe problem. What this does is it builds something modern, something vibrant, the sort of facility that a young aspiring GP wants to have on their CV. It will allow us to attract the type of skills that we need. It's a major investment, it's in line with the GP standards plan, and in terms of addressing health inequality, there is health inequality in this borough, and it's not linked to anything other than poor standards. This will address the standards, it will raise people's expectations of what they should expect from public services, and it will attract the type of practitioners that we need, and it will nurture them and help them grow. It's a great first step for the people of Chadwell and Tilbury. I'm looking forward to rolling things out as we move forward in Purfleet, in Corrigan and in Grace.
Any other members got any questions for Councillor Howard? Okay, as mentioned, obviously, a close link with children, with family members that lived there for a good number of years. I can't remember when there hasn't been a year when we, as a council, even before I was elected, mentioned the health inequalities for those residents living in Tilbury. Obviously, this will help with their treatment and hopefully with the preventative measures that are required to improve their life length. And indeed that they enjoy the life that they are living. Obviously on page 195 we can't escape that 10,368 people from Tilbury and Chadwell of the 13,399 A&E attended that didn't need any or only minor treatment won't have to go to or hopefully won't have to go to Basildon or also minor injuries anymore, and be treated in the community where they live. It's one of the models that the NHS are looking for, to make sure there's more care locally rather than having it in a central hub. And as we know, having it all in a central hub means a lot more traffic and a lot more people movements are just unnecessary. So this will go some way to addressing it, and I'm really grateful that the place that you've chosen for the first one, or we've chosen for the first one, is Tilbury, smack bang in the middle of the heart of Thurrock, and it is the place, as we said, has the most health inequalities. So it is the right place to choose. Not only do I welcome the report, I really can't wait to see what the design will look like. As we said, we are a modern, aspiring borough. We don't sort of, really want to see the old-fashioned health centres with a single-storey building with bits of glass and something that's really not too sure whether it's an old school or whether it's a health centre. So I really look forward to the outcome of this. So well done, Councillor Howard. Anything else to add, Councillor Howard?
You just pick up on your comment of A&E. There is a bit of a postcode lottery in the borough in terms of the variation of various levels of care. I'm very fortunate where I live because my local surgery is Hazlegate. It's multiple handed, multiple doctors, multiple nurses as well. When I was a child and I had an injury and I needed stitches removed, I didn't have to go to A&E and plug up the system. I could go to my local surgery. I didn't need to see a GP. I was able to see a nurse who removed the stitches. Now it's got a pharmaceutical service that is open, I think, pretty much all of the time. And that's the type of model we want. We want to end this postcode lottery. And you are right, it is about delivering something of quality for the people of Tilbury. It's a part of the wider regeneration Tilbury. And I'm sure Mr. Cox, being an aesthetic aficionado as he is, won't allow us to put up something that's unattractive.
Excellent, thank you. So with that, members, on the three recommendations at page 194, are we happy to agree all of those as written? Agreed. Excellent, and moving on to item 16 on page 205, the 2016-17 financial outturn report. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Leader. Tonight I report back to Cabinet that Thurrock has lived within its means and has prospered significantly well along the way. Inheriting an opposition budget and a narrative this borough had gone as far as it could, we rose to that challenge. And we have proved that narrative wrong, wrong, wrong. Not only did we deliver on that budget, which had little aspirational plans for our borough, we exceeded on a great deal number of expectations. Our reserves were maintained, and indeed we're going to fix the roof further while the sun's shining. Reserves will be incrementally increased over the next 3 years, leading up to 9.26 million from 8 million now. We decided to spend more to reverse a previous legacy of decline and laying waste to our clean and greener services. Let's be clear, we decided to spend that money that wasn't budgeted. And guess what? We spent it, we delivered. And furthermore, at the end result, we delivered a £500,000 surplus. We instigated a cross-party comprehensive spending review, a bottom-up review of budgets, services over 3 years. We move on to self-sufficiency ambitions in 27-18. And Cabinet wants to commit, and I, at a personal level, and another leader would echo this, we want to personally commit to learn any lessons from last year from the peer review, and indeed the lessons that we learn naturally through that. And we want to retain the ethic of cross-party input as we go through to the CSR processes for 17-18. I've already talked about the 0.5 million surplus, and another thing just to mention, fewer buildings, better services. Never has that ethic been more vindicated. Throwing money at a problem does not increase positive outcomes. It's what you do with said money. As I look at the report, section 2.2 articulates the then and now, articulating that obviously 9 million has been saved over the course of a year, £500,000 surplus, and that's all despite our discretionary activity of clean it, cut it, fill it. Obviously we've got another 1 million going into clean it, cut it, fill it this year, and that's what happens when you're good and proud of the pennies. Section 2.4 shows our reserves. What I would draw a note to is that the contingency element, if you want to call it that, is the general fund balance. All other reserves are generally earmarked and the money that we hold for borough accounts, like the dedicated schools grant, etc. But do note that the spending that's come out of some of those pots means that we are spending more on the people of Thurrock, on the ground in Thurrock, rather than it sitting on a balance sheet somewhere. You know, we're making a difference by using that cash for people's betterment. Section 3 and 4 is pretty much your departmental update, which is obviously contributed to. Section 5 reflects on the KPIs and the capital programme, and obviously there's the piece around HR, RA as well. And I would now like to address the future. As portfolio holder for finance, I and my team, my Section 151 officer, have deep dived into the concept of what it would truly take for this local authority to become more self-sufficient. That is to say, future-proofed from government income reductions, and to hopefully one day not be dependent on as much money as even a penny from the national government. My team have worked solidly on this, and this will be a key piece of work as we go into the council spending review for 2017-18 as we move to deliver 20 million by 2020. Complementing that plan, we commissioned the peer review. The peer review for finance was specifically about were what we did last year, were they the right things? Were they the wrong things? I am pleased to report to Cabinet and the public tonight that the report did not identify any stop activities. It did not say stop doing anything in particular. What it did say was continue a lot of what you're doing, and we recommend some starting of some other activities, and the leader articulated some of that earlier. We was assessed by external professionals and members, admittedly, from other local authorities. We've been ruled as going in the right direction. Our commitment to cross-party work will endure. Indeed, the intensity and the granularity of the CSR, its service reviews, and the work that we do, we will aim to make it more open to all and make it a more robust process than what it was last year. It was a good start last year. It will be even better this year. This local authority is near touching distance to being self-sufficient and master of its own destiny. We've seen it with our Clean and Cut It Fill It programme, our social care programme, our cleaner streets, our increased employment, our reduced potholes, better homes, better quality homes, leader. So those that have, lamented on the pending doom over local government, it is a challenge, I won't lie, but we have proved that we can live within our means. We can still fund the right things in different ways, and we can create a borough that works for everyone. So, Leader, I submit the report to Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Hebb. Has anybody got any questions or statements they'd like to make before I do mine? No? I like this bit because, of course, the HRA, which is the ever-forgotten account, I think, of local authorities, page 209 is a perfect example of about doing it right. We had a new build programme that was being funded from various sources, and the one thing that wasn't being looked at properly was the one-for-one receipts, and those were from the right to buy properties. By using them, not only could we return some of the money back to the HCA that had been granted to us, using them meant that we didn't lose them. Not only did we not lose them, we would have to pay interest on them. So an absolutely fantastic, simple change made such a difference to the amount of money we were spending in relation to new home builds. One-off saving on the cost of servicing debt due to a change in the profile delivery of the capital programme, or a dull way of saying we had a one-off saving of nearly £500,000, which has helped us our reserves in housing. Obviously, it is still a relatively low amount. We are looking to not only increase that through prudential spending, to make sure we're spending only in the way that we need to spend. I also want to see that as a decent reserve, because it doesn't take an awful lot to be able to wipe that out for one tragic event, and it could easily be gone. The HRA, as we saw at the last full council, we are making moves to our central government to lift the cap on borrowing within the HRA, which will allow us to hopefully build more homes. By building more homes, give us more income. That will obviously service that debt, as well as bring in more income, not only through rental income, but also through obviously council tax income, where we've got more social housing properties. Other than that, with any other statements or questions? No? So we'll move to recommendations on page 206, which is 1.1 to 1.3. Are they all agreed? Agreed. Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. I call this meeting to a close at 8:03 p.m. Thank you.